Good day everyone, we are the group 11 and we are here to present to you the chapter 17 entitled Masculinity. In our first slide, we have our motivational exercise, which is a word search so that you can have an idea of what is our topic for today.
Good morning, everyone. In chapter 17, it seems it's all about masculinity, how it became the responsibility, their situation in society, men's frugal masculinities, men's entitlement, and how they become the man of the man. Masculinity is a human project that is not defined by nature. It is sheer pursuit of people who seek to engage with each other creatively and lovingly for realization of their embodiment and desire to find intimacy. Let me introduce to you our topic. The first topic of our report is men and gender studies. Beginning of masculinity, what makes a man, proving masculinity, an inversion to the feminine, masculinity as homophobia, masculinity as power, men as the masculine generic, and male entitlement. Men and fragile masculinities, the responsibility of man, and the last is the Philippine a masculine country.
After the introductory of the topics, may your ears led because I am going to discuss the chapter objectives. At the end of this chapter, the students should be able to first explain the importance of understanding that masculinity is conduct. Second, discuss the different gender roles and norms of men in society. And third, state why the concept of masculinity can be oppressive to men.
So the first topic is men and gender studies. This chapter will focus on the idea of manhood and masculinities from both local and international data. Gender equality is a self-defeating task. Gender equality is a great obsession of politics and economy today, which is the idea that men and women should be equally represented in public office and in currently male-dominated professions, enjoy equal average earning, and do an equal amount of domestic work. Research suggests that with the proper cooperation of spouses and the state, women will be able to rise through the rank, shatter glass ceiling, and raise their collective average wage to the same level as men. Manhood. Manhood is a being an adult or the male is distinguished from a child or the female. Practicing healthy masculinity is important in the prevention of violence and encouraging equality in the society. Masculinities. In the prevalent nation which shapes all aspects of society, from politics and legislation to schoolyard interaction, the social expectation of being a man, the term masculinity refers to a rules, behavior, and attributes that are considered appropriate for boys or men in a given society. Masculinity is constructed and defined society historically, politically, rather than being biologically driven. The example might include this is a business leader, popular voice in a peer group, and a certain sportsman. The local data, it refers to a data that generates value primarily when applied to the community that generates it. And the international data, it means that they define as the procedure of collecting or measuring and analyzing accurate insight from the international audience from market research. Let's move on to heterosexual. The prefix hetero comes from the Greek word heteros, which means the other, or two, another, different, second, or other than usual. Heterosexual people are sexually or romantically attached to people of the opposite sex. Heterosexual men are sexually or romantically attached to women, and heterosexual women are sexually or romantically attached to men. The heterosexual CIS gender, men are attached to people from the opposite gender, such as women. CIS gender, means that these men see themselves as men, and others ascribe to themselves the role of the masculine self as detached by society. Julia Serrano has defined CIS sexual as a people who are not transsexual and who have only ever experienced their mental and physical sexes as being aligned, while CIS gender is a slightly narrowed term from those who do not identify as transgender or a larger cultural category than the more clinical transsexual. Next topic is the beginning of the masculinity. Carol Gilligan. She is an American psychologist known for her study of women's ways of learning. Gilligan noted that the women's socialized role are associated with the responsibility of caring for young children. Girls are trained to be caring and nurturing, and learn femininity through association or attachment. This view is based on the idea that women are not solely responsible for their own lives, but also for their relationship. The femininity, women learn femininity through association or attachment. Traditional models of household have men absent outside, leaving young boys without a male model to learn from. This leads to boys learning masculinity through dissociation from their mothers, and men learning to be a man through separation and separation possessed by Gilligan. Um, this dissociation or disconnection between a person through memories, feeling, action, or sense of who or she is.
What makes a man a man? Man is strong, but the degree of strength one may have depends on age, biology, and physical ability. Similarly, people may have different kinds of strengths, from physical to emotional and even mental. Man less of a man. He is physically weaker than his wife. Manhood, something that one can describe through adjective thoughts brave and strong. Because people and man may have a different kind of strengths, from physical to emotional and even mental. Sociologist Michael Kimmel described the needs to prove one's masculinity as fluid regardless of how it is defined in a given culture at a specific period of time. While Joseph Vandello and Jennifer Bosson argue that there are various forms of masculinities, with one masculinity dominating the gender hierarchy. Vandello and Bosson also show that manhood is hard to win and easy to lose. Kimmel identifies four roles of American masculinity in the 1970s as described by psychologist Robert Brannon. No sissy stuff. The four roles of America is number one is a no sissy stuff, number two is a be a big whale, number three, be a sturdy oak, and the last is giving them hell. One is no sissy stuff. Masculinity is based on the relentless repudiations of feminine. Masculinity is never being a sissy. Number two, be a big wall. We measure masculinity by the size of your paycheck. Wealth, power, and status are all markers of masculinity. As a US bumper sticker put it, he who has the most toys with his dice wins. Number 3, be a sturdy oak. What makes a man is that he is reliable in a crisis. And what makes him reliable in a crisis is that he resembles an inanimate object, a rock, a pillar, a tree. The last is, give them hell. Exude an aura of daring and aggressions. Take risks, live life on the edge, go for it. Proving masculinity, made of manhood that men act to prove themselves to women. Masculinity, strongly connected to a shared gender to shows that men must prove their masculinity to other men. Lad culture is a concept often linked to the crisis of masculinity in the West. Sexuality, defined masculinity, has shows that boys either use the socialized gender traits or use their sexuality to represent their socialized gender traits power. Gender socialized constructed through interactions, and manhood is hard to win and easy to lose. One made of manhood is that men act to prove themselves to women, but the fact that masculinity is strongly connected to a shared gender identity shows that men must constantly prove their masculinity to other men. Masculine culture is a variety of masculinities and cultures in UK university communities, which shapes their identities and attitudes and frame their experience of university life.
The next topic we are going to talk about is an aversion to the feminine, masculinities as homophobia, manhood. It is defined in relation to womanhood or in opposition to women. Women and non-dominant masculinities are seen as the other, wherein we are going to discuss the term other later. This content provides the behavior expected of men. One of the examples is the condemning of non-masculine actions. Boys, for example, are severely punished for acting in a non-masculine way, and these are the specific norms to be met. Aversion. A true man must have an aversion or dislike anything to feminine as a result of tolerating the mindset of people because what society standard. Example, if men wear makeup considered as gay. If men stay at house doing household chores, they will be judged. That is why many men avoid those traits because it will hurt their reputation and pride. Next keyword, homophobia. Homophobia is not the fear itself of gay men, but the fear that men can and will become gay or feminine. As a result of most feminine men pretend act cool, bully non-dominant masculine, be with their friends drinking alcohol. Indeed, some men are very conscious with their actions. The next keyword, other. Other are women and non-dominant masculines, which is heterosexual men project their identities against whom they will stack the desk as to compete in a situation that they will always win, so that they were suppressing them. Men may stake a claim for their own manhood, and this is stereotyping for me because they are certain criteria to be a man. Instead, for me, we are must to be ourselves. As long as we don't have taken a disadvantage to other people, that can be a true man. The next topic we are going to discuss is masculinity as power. The keyword, the fear of losing power. Masculinity has this power over men, the fear of becoming effeminate when they are stand to defend the non-dominant masculinity. For example, when the masculinity of a man is a challenge, he loses power unless he defends himself. It is challenged when a man is associated with a feminine, perhaps when he is in defending women or members of LGBT community. As a result, they will lose their manhood. Next keyword, powerful men. Masculinity is about power who controls various resources. In connecting to the first keyword, men fears losing power because they might dominate the different aspect of gender roles. Next one, sexist and homophobic, often part and parcel of heterosexual masculinity. As a result of being powerful, they will become these two words the sexist, which means showing prejudice, stereotyping, or discrimination, typically against women, and homophobic, typically against the gay community. Being heterosexual usually condemn these two. For example, in school, usually feminine men or non-dominant masculine being teased and bullied. Do you ever heard everywhere that men being harassed and bullied? That is why men uses their power to those who are being weaker. Silence keeps the other people believing that we actually approve of this done to women, gays, and lesbian. Being sexist and homophobic is never been sold by so many various events. At the same time, I hope that someday there are rights and laws for those sexist and being affected. For example, the SOGI bill and other rights for women and LGBT community. The next content we are going to talk about is the man as the masculine generic and man entitlement, wherein it involves first one, masculinity generic. Men viewed as masculine generic, largely reason why gender studies often only being women mind. For example, many women being raped, harassed, violence in the society, while LGBT being gay bash. That is why the community focus more on non-dominant masculinity as a result of lack of recognition. So we are going to talk about the lack of recognition. Men are gender beings has excluded them from conversation on gender. Usually men are not being privileged because they are not being opened up to the society. Because of that, men are not aware. Men do not know that they are not to be included in this discourse since they are not considered as gender beings. Being the damaging area of manhood, the society focuses more on men. Men has privilege in this society but they are afraid that they may feel need to prove that their manhood through violence, addiction, and oppressing non-dominant groups.
The next topic is about men and fragile masculinities. Masculinity is a complex concept that involves fragile masculinities, where men have the privilege of being a generic template of a human being. The Gender Role Conflict Scale, or the GRCS, describes the amount of psychological conflict, anxiety, tension, and negative emotions surrounding the male gender role, and states that having one's masculinity challenged causes the greatest stress in most men. This is due to men's socialized gender role that assigns men as strong and cool, able to ignore emotions, and the like. The idea of precarious manhood is likely due to the idea of that women have been changing their ways of life, and it is difficult to maintain manhood if the very thing men have to use to define themselves is changing. Women remain secure in that they are retained, inherited, inborn, and remain secure. The next topic is about the responsibility of men. Most important details of the phrases gender equality, changes, and partial victory are that men's gender identity is rooted in their dissociation with women, and the movement for women's equality remains only a partial victory. Women have seen radical changes concerning how society treats their gender, from school and workplace, inclusion to policies that fight for their reproductive rights. Men have no way to adjust to their changing gender role precisely because they do not see themselves as gendered beings. It is necessary to change the attitudes of men towards gender equality to show them that it is also beneficial to them as men to be allies for gender equality. Our last topic is the Philippines a masculine country? The six-dimension model of national culture by Geert Hofstede shows the six basic issues that society needs to come to terms with in order to organize itself. These include competition, achievement, success, and the quality of life in the community. Filipino masculines are driven by their status as the main actors in the public realm as drivers of development and wealth creation. With the position of Western civilization, women were excluded and male clubs and male capacities were given higher regard. Masculinities have evolved from the effeminate babaylan and spirit-possessed warrior to the macho-dominated. Masculinity is a human project that is not defined by nature. It is a shared pursuit of people who seek to engage with each other creatively and lovingly for the realization of their embodiment and desire to find intimacy. Understanding how this construct was realized and defined will help individuals appreciate the projected character of gender and on becoming better persons who love others and who can care for others.
For our reflection, according to chapter 17, it seems that it's all about masculinity, how it began responsibility, the situation in society, men's fragile masculinities, and men's entitlement, and how they become the men of the men. Men compete with their fellow men to be strong and surpass each other. And because of this, many of men lose their way and end up in the bad activities. For example, they involve in smoking, drinking, being a gang member, and being involved in crimes. And because of that, women are raped and abused.
The following are our guide questions. The first one is, what is feminism? The second one is, state the three waves of Western feminism and identify the distinct features of each wave. The third one is, what are the political or philosophical factors that shaped each of the waves of feminism? The fourth one is, what is intersectionality and how it is relevant to Philippine feminist movement? And lastly, the fifth one is, what is postmodern feminism?